Jesus Christ.
Reservoir Dogs is Quentin Tarantino's full-length debut. The independent film, made on a small budget by Hollywood standards, brought the little-known filmmaker international recognition and became one of the favorite films of millions. But if you ask the average Tarantino fan what this film is about, you usually won't get a clear answer. Perhaps you will hear something about Tarantino's dialogues, about music, about gangster's atmosphere, but you will never hear the answer, which is not surprising, because not only the average viewer, the majority of film critics are not able to give this answer in their reviews. They parse references, dialogues, characters' dossiers, but the topic of sins as if it's not important. But in this clip, we will close this question: what Reservoir Dogs is all about. Let's find out. If we throw out Tarantino's non-linear storytelling, the plot of the film is as simple as a sandwich recipe. A group of criminals after a failed robbery are trying to figure out who is the betrayer. As they argue and figure it out, they gradually lose trust in each other, which leads to catastrophic consequences. And they all die. There is a whole stratum of robbery films, such films as The Italian Job, Thomas Crown Affair, Now You See Me, and Sign Me, and of course the classic Ocean's 11.
When was the last time you were in Vegas? What? You want to knock over a casino?
Those are the highlights of the genre. Such pictures offer not only entertaining action scenes, but also deeply developed characters. As a rule, the genre of robbery films explores human greed, moral dilemmas, and the mastery of deception, showing how far people can go for money or an idea. The culmination, or at least the main event in such films, is the robbery. But tell me, in the film Reservoir Dogs, have you seen the robbery actually take place? We see the preparation for the robbery.
Wait a minute. While we were planning this caper, all we did was sit around and tell fucking jokes.
Escape from cops. The consequences.
Give me in! She killed me, man! Who fucking got that?
But the robbery itself is left out. That's no accident, because obviously the film is not about the robbery. But then what is the film about? To understand this, we need to understand a few basic concepts. Remember the first shot of the film? A group of people are discussing Madonna's song Like a Virgin and trying to understand what Madonna really wanted to say with this song. At first glance, it's a small conversation full of sharp lines and humor.
Let me tell you what Like a Virgin's about. It's all about a girl who digs a guy with a big dick. The entire song, it's a metaphor for big dicks.
No, it ain't. It's about a girl who's very vulnerable. She's been fucked over a few times, and then she meets a guy who's very sensitive.
Whoa. Time out, Green. They tell that fucking bullshit to the tourists.
Gradually, they move from song meanings and musical preferences to a discussion about if they should tip the waitresses, and Mr. Pink doesn't tip.
Come on, throw in a buck.
I don't tip.
You don't tip?
No, I don't believe in it.
We'll come back to this point later. This kind of discussion comes up more than once in the film. We hear dialogues about movies,
Charles Bronson in The Great Escape.
music,
Have you guys been listening to K. Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s
Oh,
weekend?
yeah, man, it's fucking great, isn't it?
baseball,
Brewers. Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah.
women.
Hey, I know what I'm talking about, okay? Black women ain't the same as white women.
It's not just stupid talk, it's a social-cultural code. Social-cultural code is a set of symbols, norms, values, and beliefs that determines the behavior and perception of people within a certain culture or society. This code is formed historically and includes various elements such as traditions, customs, religious beliefs, and musical preferences. The social-cultural code influences the way people see the world, how they communicate with each other, and how they interpret various events and phenomena. The social-cultural code is like a system of identification between strangers and others. It unites different people into certain social groups. Remember how Mr. Orange infiltrated the gang because they were both part of a group of poker players.
He's backing me up in the wrong fucking way. I told him it was Long Beach Mike. I did the poker game with him. A nice guy called him to check it out and said it was A-okay.
What do those guys have in common when they have a conversation? They have a preference for certain music, they like certain movies. We remember the scene where Mr. Blunt goes off on Mr. White.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite?
What was that?
They immediately relax when it turns out that they are both fans of the same actor, Lee Marvin.
I bet you're a big Lee Marvin fan, aren't you? Yeah, me too.
They are members of certain social groups, fans of certain social genre,
You guys been listening to K-Billy Super Sounds of the 70s weekend?
fans of one actor,
Lee Marvin.
of a football or baseball team,
Brewers.
poker players,
I did the poker game with.
believers.
Sure want any one of you to relate to each other by your Christian names.
In the most general sense, men with their stories about women.
I mean, she was a man-eater upper. Unfucking believable. Every guy that ever laid his eyes on her had to jack off to her at least once.
And in this particular case, criminals, robbers, with their vocabulary, norms and values. Pay attention to the way they are presented in the initial titles. They are all wearing the same costumes. They all have similar white shirts, shoes, hairstyles and sunglasses. These are elements of social cultural code. For example, the green cap with a red star on Mr. Orange's mate is also an element of the social cultural code that refers to certain historical and political context related to revolution and socialism, and to pass for his friend, Mr. Orange has to study everything in detail. They are all part of a group with one goal: to commit a robbery. In some ways the same thing happens in our society. We are labeled and named according to our social role. You're brown, you're pink, you're orange, you're liberal, you're left, you're right, retired, employer, student. We're all members of a social group of communities. IT workers, waiters, office workers, Christians, bloggers, atheists, fans of the same ideology, the same music, subscribers to the same channel. Pink in this context is a person who goes against the norms, but he is immediately put in his place.
Come on, you. Cough up a bucket, cheap bastard. I paid for your goddamn breakfast.
Alright, since you pay for the breakfast, I'll put in, but normally I would never do this.
Never mind what you normally would do.
The situation is repeated in the name-dropping scene.
Why can't we pick our own colors?
No way, no way. I pick. You're Mr. Pink.
Who pays the pipe or calls the tune, while if you don't like it,
There's two ways you can go on this job. My way or the highway.
Pink is the smartest of the group. He is the one who realized that there is a rat in their team.
They didn't let their presence be known until after Mr. Blonde became a madman, right? I'm not saying they weren't there. I'm saying they were there. But they didn't make a move until after Mr. Blonde started shooting everybody. I mean, that's how I know we were set up.
All this social cultural code unites them into a group, a team, a gang, and everything works as it should, exactly until some trigger event occurs, which is an instant brings it down like a house of cards. During the robbery, something out of the ordinary happens. One of the guys starts firing a gun.
And Mr. Blonde starts to shoot all the in.
That's not correct.
The cops arrive and things don't go as planned. And now it turns out that each of the gang members who just acted as a team are now isolated loners, immersed in their own suspicions and fears, which finally destroys their former unity.
For all I know, you're the rat.
Well, I know you're the fucking rat.
It turns out that Mr. Blonde is a psychopath and a sadist. As soon as he gets suspicious, he starts shooting at everyone and nearly kills his own.
What the fuck was Joe thinking? Can't work with a guy like that. We're awful goddamn lucky he didn't tag us when he shot the place up. I came this close to taking his ass out myself.
And he really seems to have antisocial personality disorder, because while everyone's running away in a panic, he's stopping for a burger and with a cup in his boot he arrived at the meeting place. This is confirmed by his behavior with Mr. White. He clearly has a blunted sense of fear.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite? What was that?
Mr. White in turn, as it turns out, is the opposite of the psychopathic Mr. Blonde. He's an empath. He sympathizes and pulls the giant Mr. Orange with him. He cares about what happens to him. When he gets nervous, he starts brushing his hair. It's a mechanical action, nothing more than a behavioral ritual aimed at reducing anxiety. He even for some reason, apparently on automatic, begins to calm the dying Mr. Orange, which makes no sense. He breaks down and starts talking about himself.
What the fuck was I supposed to do? Tell him I'm sorry? I can't give out that fucking information!
He acts impulsively and emotionally.
Well, I know you're the fucking rat. Fuck you and fuck Joe!
Another opposite of those two is Mr. Pink. If Mr. White acts under the influence of emotions, and Mr. Blonde is like a true psycho without emotion, then Mr. Pink is a manifestation of rationalism and common sense. As you remember, he was the one who wondered why he should leave a tip. He protested against the colors. It was he who first realized that someone had turned them in. He tries to approach everything with a cool head. Why did such an intelligent person get into such a situation? Because he's kind of addicted. For example, he says that he's quit smoking and immediately asked for a cigarette.
Have a cigarette.
I quit. Why, you got one?
He suspected that there was no need to go to this case, but he agreed anyway.
What the fuck am I doing here, man? You know what's so funny about this job right off? As soon as I felt that, I should have said no thank you and walked, but I didn't fucking listen.
As for Mr. Orange, he turned out to be the policeman who turned everyone in, but he became so deeply immersed in the social-cultural context that he simply began to lose his identity. While escaping, he instinctively shoots back and kills an innocent woman. From the very beginning, he is imbued with trust and respect for Mr. White. Afterwards, he pulls him with the last of his strength and cheers him up as best he can. His trust and loyalty to White is so strong that he can't stand to open up to him. And this despite the fact that by revealing his cards, he puts himself at risk. What's the result? Joe Cabot arrives at the warehouse claiming to know who is the rat. Tension rises when Joe claims Mr. Orange is an undercover cop.
That lump of shit's working with the LAPD.
Mr. White refuses to believe this betrayal.
Joe, I don't know what you think you know, but you're wrong.
This leads to a classical Mexican standoff, where everyone points guns at each other and eventually gunfire starts. In the final shootout, almost everyone dies. Mr. Pink tries to escape but apparently also dies in custody. Mr. White learns the truth about Mr. Orange and kills him before being killed by the police.
Don't do it! Drop the gun, man! Don't drop the gun! Drop the fucking gun! I'm gonna fucking blow you away!
The team that was united completely breaks up and no one comes out as a winner. The film shows how a group of people united by a common goal can seem to be united. But when a conflict arises, everything instantly breaks up and it becomes clear that each of its members is unique, with their own motives and beliefs. Before the triggering event, the members of the robbery looked like depersonalized criminals, members of the same gang. However, when the plan begins to fall apart, their true nature is revealed. One turns out to be a psychopath, the other an empath, some acting rationally and some emotionally. One of them turns out to be fake, an undercover cop. Reservoir Dogs controls the ideas of collectivism and individualism. At first glance, the characters are part of one whole, a team where everyone fulfills their role for the sake of a common goal. But as soon as circumstances change and a crisis arises, collectivism gives fate to individualism. Each character begins to act out of their own self-interest, revealing their true motives and morals. Finally, I would like to note that the main character of the film, it seems to me, is Mr. Orange. It's he who infiltrates the gang, initially posing as one of them, but actually carrying out his mission undercover. At the center of the events is his double game and moral dilemmas. It's he who starts the chain of events that lead to the complete destruction of the team. Mr. Orange becomes a catalyst for all conflicts that expose the true nature of the members. It's he who changed and admits that he is a cop, although he might not have done it. This is his story, and there is a really curious moment in the story related to the preparation for the introduction into the gang. There is a thought here, as I think that belong not so much to the character as to Quentin Tarantino himself.
Now the things you gotta remember are the details. Details to sell your story. Now this particular story takes place in a men's room. So you gotta know all the details about the men's room. You gotta know if they got paper towels or a blower to dry your hands. You gotta know if the stalls ain't got no doors or not, man. You gotta know if they got liquid soap or that pink granulated powder shit they used to use in high school, remember? You gotta know if they got hot water or not, if it stinks. If some nasty, low-life, scum-ridden motherfucker, man, sprayed diarrhea all over one of the bowls. You gotta know every detail there is to know about this commode. So what you gotta do is to take all them details, man, and make them your own.
And this phrase perfectly illustrates Tarantino's next second film, Pulp Fiction, the analysis of which will be on this channel when you got 50 likes under this video.
Asshole! I'm gonna fucking blow you away right now. Put your hands on the bed.